guys, you're in a nutshell with me, Ina. Nako, this must be one of the most interesting and quite unique stories na pag-uusapan natin dito involving an immigration application in Canada. Ang summary po nito, meron pong nag-apply. Part po siya ng isang PR application at na-deny because of his involvement, according to Canada, sa tokhang or extrajudicial killings that happened during the Duterte administration. Nako, papakita namin sa iyo. At meron na akong kasamang abogado this time, guys. Hindi na ako solo mag-a-analyze nitong isang court decision na ito. Welcome back, immigration lawyer Lou Danzalan. Nako, Lou, thank you so much. Medyo short notice tong kay Lou dahil nung nakita ko agad na medyo na-share na sa social media ang article na ito. Sabi ko, I really want to talk about it now. Medyo maganda pang timing natin din in discussing this because of recent events back home.
True. Yeah. Hi, Ina. Thanks for inviting me, and hello to your viewers. Tama nga sabi mo, actually, in full disclosure, actually, several weeks ago, dinisclose ko na rin kay Ina na itong case nga na ito ay lumabas sa Federal Court of Canada. I think it's a landmark that involves the discussion of tokhang. And to my knowledge, ito yung isa sa mga kauna-unahang cases from a foreign jurisdiction na nagtatakal ng tokhang. And nai-entrench ito sa jurisprudence that holds the value of precedent and basically ina-apply yung prinsipyo na nakahalintulad nga sa sa Rome Statute na nagtayo nga ng International Criminal Court.
Nako, oo, mamaya pag-uusapan natin, tatanungin natin si Lou. Ang sabi ko nga, nung binabasa ko tong decision na to, parang naunahan pa ng Canada yung parang judgment on the wrongdoings during the Duterte drug war na alam naman natin, si former President Duterte, kakalapag lang po doon sa The Hague and he will, mag-umpisa pa lang ang trial doon, Kaya baka may implication itong decision na ito doon. I don't know, who knows. Later, I will ask Lou about that. But for now, i-summarize na lang po muna namin ni Lou, itong nangyari. I will share with you as always. This is a federal court decision. Okay? Totoo po ito. Bago pa, this year lang. Published January 1st, 2025. Okay, this involves a police officer. Okay, Lou, correct me if baka meron akong mamaling information, correct mo ako. Kasi guys, ang haba nung decision na ito. Syempre, hindi na po natin hihimayin ng todo-todo yan. Okay, dito tayo mag-umpisa. Yan, the facts of the case. The applicant po, citizen of the Philippines, police officer sa PNP, station sa Jose Abad Santos sa bandang Maynila po yan. From January 12 daw po siya doon hanggang June 2021. Straight out of college, he joined the PNP according here. Okay. Ngayon, from January 2012 to 2016 po naupo sa pwesto si former President Duterte, nasa mobile patrol unit po. Ang duties niya back then, patrolling roads and vehicles sa kanyang area, as well as assisting in car accidents and conducting checkpoints to search for contraband and suspected persons. Ito na po, nag-umpisa na ngayon, 2016, nasa pwesto na po si former President Duterte. From 2016 to 2022, ayan, naka-point out po dito, Rodrigo Duterte served as President of the Philippines. And throughout that time, he implemented a war on drugs. Okay. Which the PNP executed through a strategy known as Operation Double Barrel. O, sige, move forward na tayo, Noong hold on, saan na ba siya? Nung tinransfer siya sa isang drug unit nung kanyang station.
So, drug enforcement unit.
Kasi guys, parang dinetali din dito sa decision na ito kung ano yung tokhang, anong base sa reports ang ginagawa sa tokhang operations. Okay, but we're not gonna get into that anymore. Dito lang po muna tayo sa mismong sitwasyon ng applicant. So December 2016, ito na po ay na-assign sa Drug Enforcement Unit ng kanyang police station. And he served there until February 2017. 3 months lang. Okay? Siya dun sa Drug Enforcement Unit. His witnesses testified that part of his duties included door-to-door visits, attempting to convince suspected drug users to surrender, and referring suspected drug users for verification to other drug enforcement units or for intelligence or other follow-up actions. Meron din po nabanggit dito na aware din po siya sa mga, involved din po siya sa mga buy-bust operations. Yung mga ganyan, okay? Okay, 3 months lang po siya nanatili doon. He asked to leave the Drug Enforcement Unit as it was a dangerous position. And mag-aasawa daw po kasi siya. In his words, he wanted to stay alive. Okay, yan po ang kanyang sinabi. Ngayon, okay, natanggal po siya doon sa Drug Enforcement Unit, but he continued on being a police officer. Okay? Pero, kahit na hindi na siya, wala na siya doon sa Drug Enforcement Unit, na-awardan pa pala siya, no? Binigyan siya ng medal para sa implementation ng anti-illegal drug campaign. Tapos, ayan na, pino-point out dito guys, ito, malalaman nyo later to. I think this is a key factor sa decision ng court. Mr. has never indicated that he sought to leave the drug unit over concerns with the nature of the Duterte war on drugs. Okay, ang binanggit lang po niyang dahilan, ikakasal siya, and he wanted to stay alive. Hindi dahil sa kini-question niya yung nangyayari sa drug war. Tama, no, Lou? I think this is a key point in the key factor sa decision nitong judge. By the way, kasi ni-reject na po nung immigration ang kanyang decision. At ngayon, itong ruling na ito, kini-question niya, no? Yung decision sa korte. Okay.
Right.
Okay. Ito na. O, sige na. Nag-continue pa rin po siya sa kanyang police work and only resigned sa June 2021 for the purpose of immigrating na to Canada. O, yan. He moved in June 2021 on a spousal open work permit and was included sa application ng kanyang asawa bilang permanent resident. Okay? Bale, dependent spouse si police officer. 2021 po yan. Noong May 2023, eto na, nagkaroon ng advice ang CBSA, Canadian Border Services Agency, telling him na siya po ay inadmissible to Canada on grounds of violating human or international rights. Okay. Sige, I think we can cut it here, Lou. Okay, una sa lahat, no, when I was reading through this document, ang daming mga mention of testimony ng applicant, may witnesses din siya. So how were the information in his application mag-validated? Nagkaroon ba to ng parang pagdinig, yung mga ganon, Lou? How were the information validated?
Very simply and very rapidly. So sabi mo nga, unang pasok nila as temporary residents, di ba? So siguro yung iba nagtataka paano nangyari na nakalusot. Kasi yung pag-research nila at pag-background check sa temporary resident versus permanent resident ay magkaibang standard. Kaya nga kailangan umulit ng biometrics, kaya nga kailangan kumuha ng mga bagong police certificates. Pangalawa, nung nandito na sila sa Canada, ang kanyang wife ay nag-apply nga ng permanent resident at doon nga nasiwalat kung ano yung nangyari. So, doon pa lang sa proseso ng kanilang PR, na-i-refer na sila ng Immigration and Refugees and Citizenship Canada or IRCC sa Canada Border Services Agency. Kasi si IRCC, sila yung nag-a-assess ng mga applications. Etong CBSA naman, sila naghahanap ng inadmissibility at sila rin ang nag-enforce. So pumunta sa CBSA Unit for Inadmissibility, nagkaroon ng determination at doon na nga nagsimula ang kanilang proseso. Pag sinabi nating proseso, kaya nagkaroon ng mga interview dahil hindi po ito ang unang published case. Meron na pong desisyon nung bandang November-December 2023 pa lamang, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just verify that.
Sige.
Sandali. My bad. January 2024 pala. So lumabas yung decision ng mga January 2024. At nandito sa original decision nila from the Immigration and Refugee Board, ay inapela nila itong decision na to sa Federal Court of Canada. At sa harap ninyo ngayon, nakikita natin yung original decision from the IRB at yung kaninang ginagamit ni Ina for the summary, kasi nga maganda yung summary ng Federal Court, ay ito po yung mas recent na decision na lumabas lamang po nitong January of 2025. So ibig sabihin, isang taon yung naging pila before nakalabas yung decision ng Federal Court of Canada, which, by the way, dahil alam naman natin ang delays sa Federal Court, mabilis po ito. So, dun po sa IRB hearings pa lang po, meron pong viva voce evidence. In other words, meron pong mga testimony. Ito po yung parang iniisip natin na mga pelikula na merong mga tumetestigo.
Oo.
Sa Federal Court po kasi, appeal na lang po ito for certiorari or yung tinatawag nating judicial review. So, hindi na binabalikan yung ebidensya. Yung ebidensya po ay settled na dun sa unang hearing pa lamang galing sa IRB. At yung mga impormasyon dun pa lang nasiwalat na.
Ayun. So, nagkaroon talaga ng parang trial. Ano ba? Trial pa ba ang tawag din doon na...
Hearing.
Hearing. Sorry. Hearing pala. All right. My question is, how did it get to the point, Lou, na biglang tinignan yung background niya as a police officer? Was that, do you think, doon sa application ni spouse, ni Mrs., nabanggit ba doon yung Tokhang, EJK? I mean, what could have prompted IRCC or yung IRB to look into what he specifically did as a police officer?
Sa karamihan sa ating nasa Canada na sanay sa mga forms na finifill out natin for IRCC, balikan natin yung pinaka-basic na application form. May tanong po doon, did you serve in any government? Did you serve in a police force? Did you serve in a military force? Pag chinek natin yes doon, nalalaman. At ito po magti-trigger ng investigation. Ngayon naman po, kung talagang nag-serve kayo, tapos chinek nyong no, pwedeng grounds yun for misrepresentation kasi bakit hindi nyo sinabi totoo. So, the normal process is to tell the truth. At kapag wala namang kasalanan, obviously, masisiwalat yan. Pero ang napansin ko talaga, ever since nung 2016 pa lamang, nung nagsimula pa lamang yung drug war, very alert na ako. Kayong clients ko ay basically may involvement with military, intelligence officers sa Philippines, or the Philippine National Police. Dahil in the past, I've had clients who have police background din. At napapansin nga namin, ang kanilang mga applications ay naiipit ng matagalan. Dahil sinisiwalat. At kadalasan, ang nangyayari, pinapadalan pa ng mga iba pang forms, additional forms. Ito yung mga scheduled forms na hihingin yung saang unit kayo nag-serve, sino mga commanding officer, sino supervisor, saan kayo na-deploy, ano yung panahon. Hinihingi talaga nila ang detalye at aalamin nila kung ano ang nangyari. So ang suspetsya ko dito sa nangyari dito, Ina, is hiningi nga ang kanyang detalye at doon nila nagawa ang determination. At ito ang naging simula ng basehan sa paghanap pa ng additional evidence through testimony and further witnesses and other corroborating evidence na iniligay nga sa harap ng decision maker sa IRB or Immigration Refugee Board nung nagkaroon na ng determination for inadmissibility.
Okay. Yung sinasabi mo, Lou, na parang you notice, no, you observe, na kapag ang applicant may military background or police background, did it only start happening during the Duterte administration, nung nababalita na yung mga extrajudicial killings, etc.? Do you think Canada is paying extra attention to those types of applicants with those backgrounds because of the Duterte drug war specifically? Ganun
well, let's be frank and candid. The Philippines, unfortunately, since about 2006, 2007, tumaas naman talaga ang incidences of extrajudicial killings.
Okay.
So alert naman talaga ang most Western governments, especially governments that are parties to the Rome Statute na nagko-constitute nga ng International Criminal Court. Kaso nga lang noong 2016, nagkaroon ng mas malaki, mas malawak at mas sistematikong extrajudicial killings according to reports na nagagamit ngayon ng mga intelligencers ng mga foreign governments na syempre nag-a-analyze ng mga situations on the ground. Trabaho ito ng bawat embahada at hindi ako magugulat kung ang Canadian Embassy ay regular na nag-feed ng information regarding the human rights situations in the Philippines. Kasama na rin dito sa mga intelligence bodies ng Canada. Kasama na rin dito ang CBSA at Immigration.
Okay. Now, balikan natin tong case kasi I was reading through it. I didn't see any mention of being charged, let's say. Hindi naman siya kinasuhan yata sa Pilipinas. He was not convicted of any crime. And yet, the court said, ang determination po pala ng court, guys, so I think I skipped that important part, was that he was complicit. No?
Correct.
Doon sa mga crimes that happened during the drug war, specifically sa mga nangyayari doon sa kanyang station. Diba? So, paano yun, Lo? Sabihin nung iba, wala naman akong kaso, hindi man na-convict. Bakit ganun ka-harsh, kumbaga, yung naging decision sa kanya?
Right. Madaming levels and maraming statutes yung nag-ooperate in this case. But the simplest way to put it, Ina, is number one, Mr. Ahuday was found inadmissible to Canada under Section 35 of the Immigration Refugee Protection Act. Na-mention mo siya nung simula. Na if someone committed violations of human rights, for example, and kasama dito yung mga international obligations ng Canada, which is a signal na dun papasok yung crimes against humanity. At other crimes na covered ng Criminal Code of Canada. Ito nga, dahil naglalaro sa Section 35, for the purposes of immigration, if the alleged crime is committed abroad, you do not need a charge, you do not need a conviction. All you need is commission. And then you have to convince the officers in Canada that you did not do it in order to not be found inadmissible. Pero babalikan din natin yung susunod na statute at play dito. Ito yung Crimes Against Humanities and War Crimes Act of Canada. Itong piece of legislation na ito ay ang pumalit sa Nazi War Crimes of Canada na long-standing basically statute, na criminal statute ng Canada na prosecute nga ng mga crimes against humanity, genocide, all of that na basically nangyari nung pangalawang gerang pandaigdig, diba, na Second World War. So, na-i-update ito nung sumama ang Canada sa Rome Statute in the 90s. So, in-update yung batas at ito na nga ang tawag sa kanya, Crimes Against Humanity. So, pasok na pasok dito yung question mo kanina. Wala siyang kinomit or wala siyang conviction rather. At ang dating dito is like, bakit siya na-involve kung wala naman siyang conviction? Well, the Crimes Against Humanities kasi, tinitingnan dito is yung organization na kung saan ka involved or saan ka miyembro at yung individual participation mo dito. So yung first test question dito is the organization as a whole, did it commit a crime against humanity? So it's defined naman under jurisprudence, it's also defined under the statute. So pupunta tayo sa pangalawang tanong kasi if the answer to that first question is yes, yung individual in question, in this case, was he complicit in the crime against humanity? And then papasok tayo dun sa mga subsidiary question, and I think dito na nga papasok yung mga puntong mo, ni-raise mo kanina. Paano na-establish ang complicity dito?
Yan.
Is it voluntary? Is it significant? Yung contribution ba niya ay knowing? So in other words, kung crime against humanity, ito yung systematic violation of human rights, which is yung extrajudicial killing, for example, na systematic use of the state apparatus, for example. Voluntary ba siyang pumasok dito? Mukhang oo, according dun sa decision na lumabas sa IRB. Significant ba ito? Kasi ang tanong mo kanina, ang punto mo kanina is, in-underscore nung judge, diba? 3 months. 3 months lang siyang nag-participate from December 2000 and was it 16 up to February of 2017?
17,
dun siya talaga assigned dun sa pagkakatok nga, diba? Yun sa tokwa. So, significant ba ito? Sa palagay ng decision maker sa IRB, significant daw ito. Ang pangatlong test, knowing contribution ba ito? Alam naman nila na kapag ang operation na ito ay naglabas ng umamin or nanlaban, according dun sa findings nga ng IRB decision maker, is po pwedeng ang maging knowing contribution ito sa pag-commit ng crime against humanity. So, doon na-establish yung complicity. So, kaya tama yung mga na-highlight ng judge nung decision maker at na-highlight mo nga kanina dun sa relevance ng discussion natin today.
Correct. Doon actually nag-focus itong federal court ruling, no? To pag-establish if he was indeed complicit knowingly. Ito, may sentence dito, guys. I'm reading off from the decision itself. It was determined that the applicant had made a voluntary, knowing, and significant contribution to the PNP's crimes against humanity, specifically as a member of the organization's DEU, yung Drug Enforcement Unit. In coming to that conclusion, ito na pala. Naku, ang haba na nito, no? The ID made the following factual findings. Nako, at dito in-establish nila isa-isa, guys, kung bakit sila naniniwala na voluntary yung contribution. Bakit siya knowingly pinasok yung role na yun, alam niya yung pinapasok niya, etc. It's really a long, ang daming bullet points nitong decision na to, guys. Masyado nang mahaba kung ating babasahin pa. Is there any other recourse ganitong decision?
Maaari pa siyang pumunta sa Federal Court of Appeal. And up to the Supreme Court. Pero at that point, kailangan na pa rin ng leave or permission of the court to have it heard. It's mostly a coin toss, really, in terms of whether the court will accept to hear your case or not. Depending on the gravity of the case. Considering how precedent-setting it is, it might be something that could rise to the occasion na excite yung interest ng mga judges sitting at the Federal Court of Appeal. Ngayon, ang question dito is, how willing is it to pay, basically, lawyers' fees in order to get representation at the Federal Court?
Basically, twice na siya na deny, diba? Yung una, yung mismong refusal ng kanyang PR, tapos inappeal niya sa court, kinatigan ng court yung yung denial ng kanyang PR application. By the way, he did try to defend himself, ha? Ito, I will just read it, guys, ha? Hindi ko na mahanap, pero nilagay ko lang kasi sa notes ko kanina. The applicant's own testimony, according to the ruling, he was aware daw that the police, and particularly the DEU, was engaged in dangerous activity, including that the police needed to neutralize those drug addicts if they had guns, and that he heard about things happening in other stations, but never his own. Sinasabi niya na, oo, may problemang nangyayari, may mga kriminal nangyayari. Pero kumbaga, he tried to distance himself na hindi naman sa amin nang yayari yan.
Yeah.
Pero at the same time, nung sinabi niya, di ba, na oo, may nangyayaring crimes. Sabi niya, he argued that the PNP is a large police force and that not all its members were complicit in the Duterte regime's crimes. And he further points to the fact that sa career daw niya, ang sabi niya, he only worked in low-level activities such as traffic enforcement.
Right.
But anyway, I guess, winay lahat no?
Winay. But if you think about it, he had a very long career. Ito yung punto niya, yung sum total ng argument niya. Ang haba ng career niya sa PNP. His time in Operation Double Barrel was only 3 months. So parang ang appeal niya dito is like, hey, ang tagal kong normal yung aktibidades ko as police officer. Nagkataon lang na 3 buwan na assign ako sa Tokhang. Parang on balance, paano ba to? Unfortunately, ito kasi yung standards ng crimes against humanity, mababa talaga yung threshold to meet. Dahil nga ganun talaga kalaki yung pag-stigmatize ng batas sa crimes against humanity as it is entrenched in the Canadian law that basically enables the Rome Statute in Canada as a party state to the Rome Statute nga. And dun sa punto mo kanina is yung knowing contribution That's a huge factor here. Kung 3 months kang nandun and nag-participate ka, napakalaking problema talaga yan as a potential PR application. Talagang ma-red flag ka talaga dito. Kapag nakita nila na involved ka in a particular unit. Remember what I said, right? Yung supplementary forms na hihingi ng immigration. Saang station ka na-assign? Saang battalion ka na-assign? Kaninong officer ka na-assign? Anong mga panahon? Anong mga task mo? Anong mga duties mo nung time na yun? I'd like to kind of like compare that to a not so similar PNP officer that I've handled in the past na naka-assign sa presinto, sa desk. Ang layo eh. 'Di ba? Versus yung someone na kahit na 3 buwan lang na naka-participate talaga sa actively, voluntary and significantly na naka-participate sa pagkatok na, sa tokhang mismo.
So wait, what happened dun sa isa mong client, desk officer? Anong in-applyan niya sa Canada? Okay naman.
Visitor visa, na-approve naman. Pero ang tagal. Na-hold talaga siya, siguro mga 2 taon. Yung unang application nga ay na-refuse pa. We had to go to the federal court to overturn. And then tagal ding inupuan ng IRCC matapos ito. Talagang inimbestigahan talaga nila. At ang dami nilang hininging impormasyon.
Actually, that's my next question. Let's say there are policemen back home watching or former soldiers, etc. na gustong mag-Canada. And then they hear about this and they did serve from 2016 to 2022. Should they be worried? Sabihin nila, na-assign din ako sa unit na to, but what can they do if they want to increase their chances of getting approved dito sa Canada?
It's, you have to check it on a case-per-case basis. Remember yung 2-part test, diba? First is, yung organization ninyo, involved ba dun sa crime against humanity? You as an individual, as a part of that organization, were you complicit in the crime against humanity? So how do you establish complicity? It needs to be voluntary. The actions need to be significant. And it needs to be knowing contribution. So, balik tayo kay Mr. Ahuday, yung voluntary kasi maayos, madaling ma-prove. Yung significant sabihin natin, 3 months lang. Pero kasi, kung ika-quantify yan 1 life lost, it's pretty significant. That's how the decision makers in Canada would view this. So even if 3 months ka lang nandun, wala kang directly matay na siya mismo yung nag-pull ng gun to someone, for example. We're not saying that he did. We're only saying that the government doesn't even have to establish that you pulled the gun. But if your contribution is significant enough to have led to that, then it's a problem for you as an applicant.
Yeah, ang bilis Tignan mo, mag-half hour na tayo, Lou. I guess my last question is, how do you think could this be used in the International Criminal Court? Guys, we are taping this episode sa araw kung kailan dumating po si former President Duterte sa The Hague. Okay?
Very historic moment, ano? And the short answer is yes. And the reason is because Canada is part of the Rome Statute. One of the signatories to the Rome Statute forms part of the International Criminal Court. Canada champions international law and champions human rights, basically. And as party to that, ang ginawa nila nung umanib ang Canada sa Rome Statute, in-implement nila through domestic legislation, through the Parliament of Canada, almost lock, stock, and barrel yung Rome Statute provisions into the Crimes Against Humanities and War Crimes Act of Canada. So basically, yung interpretation na lumabas dito sa case na to will be substantive in dealing specifically with Oplan double barrel with Tokhang. To my knowledge, there has not been a lot, if this isn't the first, there's not been any jurisprudence from any foreign jurisdiction that is party to the Rome Statute that has come out with something as detailed of an analysis in this. So, may effect ba ito sa case na paparating na i-hear sa ICC? Very, very possible. Kasi makikita natin yung legal musings and legal interpretation and implementation ng batas through a court of a party state.
Yeah. Ay, nako. Again, guys, it's a very long decision. And I must say, talagang it's like the federal court really had its judgment on wrongdoings talaga. Na talagang may nangyari, ganito, ganyan, established po dito sa decision, why they say so. So yeah, so I won't also be surprised, tama nga si Luna, kung talagang magagamit din ito sa ICC, sa magiging trial doon. And if you want to read more about this, I will be sharing with you guys the link dito sa Federal Court decision sa description box. Baka gusto nyo basahin po in full itong decision na to. Lou, maraming salamat ha. Guys, moving forward, I think we're gonna have Lou sa ating mga episodes where, you know, we read mga federal court decisions para mas knowledgeable, diba? At kung may tanong ako, andyan agad siya.
It would be a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lou. And yeah, we will end this episode here. Again, maraming salamat. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!